What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Got another spicy FNM event list for you guys. This one, the FNM event is Pauper, so that's commons only. Only common cards. No uncommons, no rares, no mythics, so no Planeswalkers, no sweepers. It's just a fun little format. I wish they would bring these kind of formats to Arena full time, but hey, we'll take what we can get. So for this one, I built a nice little Enchantress list for you. Enchantress, of course, is auras. So what we got here is cards like Transcendent Envoy. It's a 2-mana, 1/2 flyer. Aura spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So we're running 20 lands since we are very, very low to the ground. And then Transcendent Envoy allows us to basically cast multiple auras because we do get that cost reduction on the colorless side of it. And we do have some additional creatures that can take advantage of auras as well. So we're trying to leverage creatures with auras. So things like Pious Wayfarer is a 1-mana 1/2, which is fantastic, especially in a format like this. And Constellation, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So you just play this down on turn 1. And say you play any enchantment or your Envoy, which is an enchantment creature, that triggers it as well. Then you make your Wayfarer a 2/3 creature on turn 2. So that's going to be pretty fantastic against most decks. We also got 4 copies of the Almighty Brushwagg. It's a 1/1 with trample. So I thought that was pretty fantastic to put some enchantments on this, and it already has built-in trample. And of course, if it gets a little bit longer and you have 4 mana open, you can also pay 4 to make it +3/+3. So it'll be a 4/4 or whatever, depending on any enchantments you have onto it, and you just swing in through a bunch of trample damage. Let's have 4 copies of Setessan Skirmisher. Just kind of a personal favorite of mine. It's a 2/1 for 2 mana. Also has Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So not as good as the Pious Wayfarer, but still a pretty solid card and is more aggressively statted with the 2 power rather than the 2 toughness. So we are trying to be aggressive with this deck, and so it fits in just fine. And we also have 4 copies of the Kronch Wrangler. It's a 2/1 with trample for 2 mana. So it's basically similar to the Brushwagg. The ability we're not really worried about because we don't have any creatures with power 4 or greater. But just having a 2/1 with built-in trample and then putting additional enchantments on top of it to make it even bigger and swoller is really what we're trying to do with this card. And see, so that's it for the creatures. So we do have the protection spells with the Karametra's Blessing. Automatically protects the Transcendent Envoy because it is an enchantment creature. Everything else it protects will have to have an enchantment on it to give it hexproof and indestructible. Otherwise, it does still get the +2/+2 effect. And with trample, that is just fantastic. And so some of our auras here is we're running all 4 copies of Night's Pledge. Just giving our creature a +2/+2 boost for 2 mana is pretty sweet. And we also have the Setessan Training, which gives our also does give trample, which is fine, but +1/+0 and drawing a card is pretty sweet, form card advantage. And then here, our big payoff here is the Oakenform. It's a 3-mana enchantment that says enchanted creature gets +3/+3. So we're trying to just put a couple of these enchantments on there, give it +5, +6, whatever, and just kind of trample through for a bunch of damage, or trample through for damage in the air with our Envoy. And of course, the Envoy reduces the cost of Oakenform to 2 mana, or the Knight's Pledge to a single white mana. And just kind of play out multiple spells and just kind of win the game quickly that way. And then, of course, you have the Karametra's Blessing to protect against any sort of spot removal or trading and combat damage, things like that. So it can be kind of removal in that way as well. So just lots of things you can do with Karametra's Blessing. Just that 1 mana instant speed, just fantastic in this format. Then, of course, the removal, we're running all 4 copies of Pacifism, as enchanted creatures can't attack or block. So that way that we can take out their biggest creature with Pacifism and has a block for smaller creatures, and we just trample through for a bunch of damage and close out the game. So just 20 lands, 8 planes, 8 4s, and then all 4 Blossoming Sands. Try to keep it real simple. You do need some fixing, so Blossoming Sands, of course, with the life gain is your best bet in the Pauper format. If you want some additional fixing, you could run like some Evolving Wilds or the other dual lands that come in tapped. But since we are trying to be the aggressive deck, we want to play on curve as much as possible and minimize the tap lands. So just to be clear, this is obviously not the Pauper event. I'm recording this ahead of time just so you can kind of get a little bit of a feel for how this deck operates. So whenever the deck tech, so if that's all you need, fine, have at it. Hope you guys enjoy and this gets some wins for you. If you want to see how this plays, we'll see how it does against the matchmaking algorithm, which generally factors in rarity and the overall power level of the deck. So we should get some reasonable matchups that aren't running a bunch of stupid, powerful cards. And so generally speaking, you should get a reasonable matchup if you're playing a Pauper or kind of budget style deck like this. So not an amazing hand, obviously not having white mana, but we do have 2 Skirmishers, and then we can draw a card off the training as well. So yeah, we do have 3 playable cards, so we will keep it. And just a matter of time before we draw into a white source, then we can really kind of go ham with the Blessing or the Envoy. Okay, so our opponent on Island and Wall of Ruins. Okay. So Wall of Ruins is, I guess, a good card for setting up combos and things like that, but otherwise just 4 toughness is, I mean, obviously it stops our Skirmisher right now, but we will get the, we could swing in next turn with the Training, giving it the +1, and then the Consolation effect, giving it the additional +1 to make it a 4-powered creature, just to get the Wall of Runes off the board if they want to block with it. Okay, Brineborn Cutthroat. Okay, so I've seen similar lists before. I think we'll just keep adding to the board here with our Skirmishers. Say good. Would love to find another land here to get the Envoy and Wrangler down, and then really just kind of go ham from there. So they could attack in with the Cutthroat. I will not block. So they've curved out pretty nicely here. So the Envoy doesn't really do a whole lot for us. It does let us play Training, which is decent. But we still don't have fantastic attacks yet, so I'd like to get multiple triggers. So I think we'll just play the 2-1, and then next turn we can Training, we can Envoy into Training, and then should still have mana open for the Karametra's Blessing. As playing Envoy first allows us to okay, we have a decision here which to tap down. So our opponent has curved out perfectly here. Of course, Dungeon Geist is not a Pauper legal card. Oakenform is pretty sweet. We'll put the Training on the Skirmisher and then just hold a Blessing. Pacifism, that's pretty good. I'm not sure there's a clear target for it just yet, so we'll just swing in there. I think we're better off just holding up the Blessing. And the Cutthroat is nasty. We can pacify the Geist, but it doesn't do anything about this Skirmisher being tapped down. So I kind of would like them to block at some point, just to maybe trade off with it. Or to Karametra's Blessing to buff our creature above it and kill it and keep our creature alive. But we'll see what they do. Unsummon. I don't think we want to lose any tempo here, so it's Karametra's. Could have a Quench or something like that. Of course, Brineborn Cutthroat also not legal in Pauper because it's an uncommon. And now they don't have any good attacks. But they attacking anyway. Yeah, we'll get here 3-3 and get to untap our did. Seems pretty good. Yeah, definitely gonna Oakenform there. And yeah, I think on the flyer seems pretty good. And I have pretty good attacks. Swing all. Pressure's on you. We're here playing a Pauper list, and you've got these uncommons and rares. Okay, blocking our 4-3, so the wall dies. And blocking the 2-1 with trample. Down to 2. Our opponent knows how trample works. And they're just trying to block just to stay alive, I guess. But now they're down to 2. They have 2 creatures on board. They do have 4 cards in hand. That's a little scary. If they do manage to play another Dungeon Geist, we can just pacify it. And if we draw into another Aura, Leapfrog. Okay, that's not the most amazing card. And they just go for the suicide. Respect. Yeah, let's spread the love. Pacify. And yeah, unsummon, nothing they can do to stop. Ooh, minus 18. You see that? Wow. Alright, so tiny bit of a tempo there with the Karametra's Blessing. Definitely kept us, if we needed to preserve our board state in that spot. Our opponent made some pretty silly attacks. We were able to capitalize, and then just using the power of auras and trample to push across a bunch of damage, and gives ourselves a more commanding spot. Let us be the aggressor. All right, against Shy Biscuit, and that's all we're trying to do here. Is just be the aggressive deck. So we do have a couple creatures and a couple auras and some removal in the form of the Pacifism. So yeah, including white and blue. Like some additional lands, but you know, 20 land deck. Gonna be a little bit tight. But you know, we're topping out at 3 mana. You should have 2 lands generally in your opening hand, and then any lands you draw on top of that are just kind of gravy once you get up to 3. Definitely not a kind of deck you want to flood out with. So 20 feels pretty much right to me. And then the training, giving you just that little bit of card draw, is pretty sweet. Obviously, the trample with all of our trample creatures is a little redundant, but you can put this on the Skirmisher or the Envoy, and that works fantastic. Alright, so I don't know why we're going to come against all these Wall of Runes decks. But hey, we'll take it. So we could Wrangler and set up for next turn, or we could just go for the Oakenform. Okay, so they're in Dimir. That's a little scary. Pious Wayfarer. So I think we'll just set up for next turn. But Dimir, they could have counters or removal. No reason to attack. I'll assume they know how to block. We can set up next turn for the Oakenform or Training to draw a card. It's Sultai. So the Pacifism means they can't block with it, but otherwise doesn't really do a whole lot. I think I'd actually like to just draw a card here. Since those guys already have trample, we'll put the trample on itself. There we go. We can make the 0/4, not be able to block. That seems pretty reasonable. Just get that toughness out of the way. We'll buff you up. If they want to trade with one of these Kronch Wranglers, that's fine. The Fiend Artisan is pretty nasty. Obviously not something you would see in Pauper because it is a mythic. They can of course just sacrifice the Wall of Runes to it to get something. But we do have the follow-up Pacifism for whatever creature they play. And it'll let us get in for a bunch of damage there. Okay, so they amass. Bleeding Edge. Pretty mediocre removal spell, but did the job right there. Okay, so they do want to keep their Fiend Artisan alive, and not even interested in trying to hold it back. So pacifying the army is fantastic because it'll continue to get counters rather than making additional armies, because it's already an army on the board. But of course now they have 2 creatures which they were going to sacrifice anyway. It just let us get in for additional damage. So we do have a bunch of trample coming through. Kind of flooded out a little bit here with 5 lands already. It's not really where we want to be on a 20 land deck. Trotta, okay. Trotta is cool. If we don't really have a way to, if we draw a land, we might just lose here. So the Fiend Artisan obviously is great to get in Trotta, but they had one in hand, so that's probably why they weren't trying to activate it. But now they can Trotta, get rid of our beefy Kronch Wrangler. Alright, so we can Knight's Pledge, and kind of force them to block. We can put it on the big 5/4, And they really have to block. Let's see, that would be a 7-5. They have to block with a Trotta. If we spread it to the 2-1, made it 4 powered, they could block the 5-4. I think let's spread it out. I think this is the way to go. They could block here, but then they're taking 4 damage down to 1. Just out of the 1 creature, and they can attack in with a Trotta. So let's maybe this was the better play. So we don't have haste, so there's no reason for them not to attack in. Trotta shuffles back in though. 4 cards in hand. Maybe just loading up enchantments on 1 would have been better. 7 trample would have forced them to block with a Trotta, I think. We gave it a pretty good run. And they are playing lots of mythics and rares, and we almost had them. Just kind of a misplay there with putting the aura on the trying to spread the wealth and see if they would make a mistake, but. Yeah, I think the aura on the creature that was already enchanted was the best way to go, because then they would have had to block with a Trotta since they had trampled. Something I thought about, but then overthought it and decided to put it on the other creature. Just because the general rule, it's usually safer to spread the love for any enchantments. You know, put multiple, instead of putting multiple enchantments on the same creature, to put give multiple creatures different enchantments. There are multiple threats your opponent has to answer. But I think that spot, just loading up the single creature, would have been the best play, because they would have had to block with a Trotta, and they would have been able to attack in with it. But yeah, there's a lot of rares and things like that you're not going to see in the Pauper event. So not really a fair matchup in that regard, but even then we still probably should have had that game. We've only to play this a few times in the Artisan event, just to kind of get a decent feel for it. So Mountain. Steamkin's pretty nasty. Just the matchmaking algorithm is not as kind as I thought it was. We're getting all these matchups against these rares and mythic type cards. And you're not going to see any of these cards in Pauper. So they played a rare and they played an uncommon, and we just have commons in our deck. There's their first common. I mean, they're still getting a ton of value off of this Steamkin, because even though it can't attack or block, it still got the counters, and they can eventually use that for mana. But if we can untap with at least a couple of these creatures, we do have some nice power plays here. But mono red is just going to mono red, so now they can easily take off these counters, play additional spells, grow these guys. And we've already used up 2 of our pacifisms, because we've had to stay alive against their relative power level. We could block, but they probably have like an Infuriate or anything like that, so I think we're better off just taking it. Alright, what creature do we care about the most here? I think we'll go ahead and put the training on the Wayfarer. And we'll target the Brushwagg. And we'll swing off. I don't love our blocks here in this spot, so I'd rather just attack. And if they want to block with the Spellgorger Weird and try to play some kind of a combat trick, we do have the Karametra's Blessing that can potentially save us, although the Infuriate works much better than Blessing. We'll wait and see if they have a response first. Nope. I think I'm okay with that trade. We'll just hold a Blessing to protect our Pious Wayfarer, since that's kind of our best path to victory here. Dracula. Okay. So we have the third Pacifism, which is lucky. Yeah, it's pretty insane that we're getting matched up against this kind of stuff. I mean, obviously Dracula isn't like a tier 1 card or anything, but I mean, matchmaking algorithm not really doing us any favors here. Let's just go for the Knight's Pledge. Attack in for 7. And we'd have the Oakenform plus Blessing. Could maybe close the game next turn. We do need to close this game out quickly before they find additional threats. Any additional red spell is going to be kind of scary because they could play out their hand. Just a Skewer. Oakenform makes this 5, and if they don't block for some reason, then Karametra's Blessing could win us the game, but we'll see. Okay, attacking in because they're mono red, they don't know any other way. They have one card in hand, could be Shock or something, but they don't seem like the type that would necessarily play around. We'll hold up a Shock. Forgot about the +1, so I think we actually have it here. We're attacking for 8 trample. Alright, fighting through all these mythic rares. Or I shouldn't say mythic, no, just rare. Rares and uncommons on kind of a budgety mono red list, which can be pretty nasty, and we just did get there. Alright, jump into one more. And the matchmaking algorithm not as kind as I thought, so that doesn't seem to be based on rarities, it just seems to be maybe some kind of arbitrary power level. So we do have the Envoy and the card draw, so I think we'll keep. We can Envoy on 2, and then Training to draw, and then Pacify. So this is the cycling deck, which is all the rage these days. Or maybe not. Showing blue or white green. I don't think I've seen green in these cycling decks, so I really don't know what they're up to. Right, we'll just play out our Envoy, and then we'll Training to draw a card, and see where we're at from there. The Knight's Pledge, it's pretty solid. Let's find another green source. Okay, so they're in Naya. Okay, so Shock deals with our Envoy just fine. No reason to expect a Shock from what we've seen there, but and then manually tapping your 2 lands. Okay, just to tap out. So now we are creatureless. If we had seen if they had led with red, then obviously we could have played around a potential Shock or something by waiting till turn 3. We're drawing all of our auras, so if we do find a creature, we'll be able to get some nice payoffs. And plenty of white to hold up the Karametras. But opponent just had the shock just in the right time when we weren't even expecting it. And we are just drawing like crap here. So that is the risk of keeping just one creature, but since we're kind of evenly balanced between creatures and auras, seems to make sense, with especially with the card draw. No reason to expect the removal there immediately, but and of course we can match up with all these opponents that are playing cards that you will not even see in the event. Sorry, 4-color cycling. They're just going to kill us with this 5/4 enchantment. And if we draw a creature, there's not really a whole lot we can do. I don't know why they're not attacking in with their 2/2. They think we can flash something in. There's a Skirmisher. We desperately need to draw some cards. Yeah, we'll just hold it up. We have the Blessing. We have to keep that just to protect our creature. We'll give it indestructible, thanks we were able to get the aura on it. But these Ominous Seas 8/8s could just take over. But we'll give it a couple turns, see if we can climb back into this. And we have to protect our creature at all costs. If they have a counterspell, we're dead. Okay, getting that Giant Stinger value, making their enchantment into a creature, but we have indestructible, so we will definitely block. See if they realize that. Nope. Happily take that. I guess they just wanted to trample, maybe. So we can pacify their creature, but that's a little medium. Let's go ahead and Knight's Pledge. And Oakenform. And then we still have a single white mana for the Karametras, and hope we can get there. We just have the 3 counters, so that's fine. Our creature is pretty beefy, but we do need to hold up the Hexproof until the last possible second. But they could cycle into something, or if they could go off and make 8/8s, that would be pretty scary. 1 card in hand. Yeah, let's make it so they can't even block with it. The Knight's Pledge. And attack him. Whew. That was a rough start. I did not think we had any chance to come back. That shock was kind of definitely a shock to our system, but I just get 1 creature and enchant it like crazy, hold up the Karametra's Blessing, and you're good to go. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Pretty sweet deck. Definitely should get you some wins in the event. So let me know how it does for you and if any changes you would make to it. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.